Hello, and thank you for coming to today's Atticus webinar, The 10 Big Lies That Stop Practice Growth. I'm Mike Wells with Atticus, and thank you for joining us today. Before we begin, I'd like to go over just a bit of information about Atticus if you're not familiar with us. Atticus was founded in 1989 to provide in-depth, ongoing support and accountability programs for attorneys that effectively help you increase your gross revenues and your personal income, reduce the stress and the number of hours you spend in your office, have a greater sense of career satisfaction, and most importantly, allow you more time for family and your personal interests. Today's presenter is attorney and practice advisor Steve Riley. Steve is a shareholder in Atticus, which is the largest practice management company working with solo and small firm attorneys in the nation. And he created several programs for Atticus, including the Practice Growth Program, the Dominate Your Market Program, and the Double Your Revenue Workshop. Prior to joining Atticus, Steve had built and sold his own law practice. Steve, thank you so much for presenting today. This is an important topic, and I know the attendees will get a lot out of it.
Thank you. And welcome, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. And I have been really looking forward to doing this presentation. As you heard, we really work heavily in the small firm and solo practice market. And this presentation is designed to hit three critical topics. One are the 10 big lies that stop practice growth. And these are the 10 things that lawyers tell themselves over and over and over that really stand in the way of helping them grow their practice. Two, which is another critical conversation, is how to implement change in your law firm. Everybody knows that in order to make a different practice or to grow your practice, you have to implement change. And how do you do that? How do you actually implement change successfully and sustainably? And then three, what's our most important recommendation? So that's really the three topics. We'll have some time. I joke that sometimes I'll reserve time for rebuttal, or I will reserve time for questions, depending on how you want to go at it. So that's the topics that we're working through. And I'm going to spend a considerable amount of time just kind of taking apart what I consider the 10 big lies that lawyers tell themselves that really stand in the way of growth. So let's set the stage. Most attorneys, myself included, when they have the dream of building their own practice, really dream of a practice where they're after autonomy. Not necessarily more income, but usually autonomy, control over their time, control over their practice, control over how they want to serve their clients. Very few lawyers that I've met in my 30 years of doing this have come up to me and said, gee whiz, I did this to make some more money. Now, financial security and profitability is crucial, but most lawyers, when they open up their own practice, really aren't doing it for the money. They're really usually doing it primarily for autonomy, control over their time, control over how they practice, control over who they serve. Secondarily, profitability, hopefully making more money, is critical. Three is control over their life. Like, how do I get control over my life and my time? And then really more time with family. So usually we have a very good lawyer that has a dream of having a great practice, an ideal practice. But what really happens is that when they start the practice, they really create a practice that becomes a nightmare. It's not a dream at all. They actually end up becoming a slave to their practice, because what happens is they lack certain business skills. So instead of feeling like they're serving their clients, they feel like they're chasing cash flow. And instead of hiring people they think is dynamite, they typically are frustrated with the staff. And right when they feel like they're getting ahead, payroll's around the corner again, and they're chasing cash again. And instead of really feeling like, oh my God, I've got control over my time, I can spend more time with the people I care about, more time doing what I want, they typically get time starved. They feel like they're getting crushed. They have no time with the people they love, and they feel like they're getting more and more difficult clients and really, really difficult people to work with. One of the workshops that we do called Double Your Revenue is a fabulous workshop. And one of the reasons that we have a difficult time getting lawyers to sign up for it, because they usually say, well, if I'm going to have twice as many clients as I currently have, and I'm going to have the clients that I currently have, why would I want 2 times those clients? I mean, they're miserable clients. I'm not making enough money off of them. I'm not making enough money off my practice. Why would I want twice as much of that? And it's because you're really kind of at a point in your practice where you've enslaved yourself by how you think and how your business skills currently are. So when we start looking at this, it's not that you're a bad lawyer. In fact, most lawyers that we work with are really great lawyers, are phenomenal lawyers. They're just really, really blind to certain business issues. And that's what I want to spend some time on today, is just really look at what's in the way of growth for you. What's in the way of taking your practice to a level that you feel happy with it, that you feel satisfied with it, where you're not resenting coming into the office, where you're not resenting when the phone rings, where you're not resenting your staff. You know, what's in the way? And when you think about it, it first begins with how you think about your practice. So let's just talk for a minute about this. At the end of the day, what I think we do for a living as a company is that we help lawyers deal with what's called metacognition, which is how they think about their practice. So let me say that again a little slower. What we help lawyers do at the end of the day is help them think about how they think about their practice. So their mindset is really probably the first and most critical thing that we have to work on. And the lies that are in the way of growth are reflective of one type of mindset that we'll just call for today's webinar, the status quo mindset. Now, if you're an existing Atticus client or customer, you know that we probably call it something different. But for today's webinar, for those of you that are new to us, we'll just call it a status quo mindset, which is a mindset that's fixed, like this is the only way you can do something. The practice growth mindset is different, because the practice growth mindset is really about business. It's really about obviously growth, and it's really about how you look and think about your practice. So as we go through this, I want you to imagine that the lies that are in the way are really reflective of what the mindset is that you learned thus far. Now, the great thing about a mindset, it's a wonderful thing, because if you shift how you think and you look at something differently, you can actually really transform and alter how you practice and transform and alter a lot of things about your life. But these 10 lies are probably the most critical lies that are reflective of a particular mindset. So when we walk through these, I want you to look at yourself and score yourself, like on a 1 to 10, 10 being this is absolutely true for me, or 1 not so true. And you know, this is so important to me that I'm going to have somebody on my team reach out to you after the call and just say, hey, look, which of the 10 lies has you the most and why? So I'm going to do it at my cost. One of my team members is going to reach out. They'll use my name when they call your office, so tell your receptionist, your assistant, or whomever. When somebody calls with Steve Riley's name, put them through, because they've got a question for you. And I want you to answer the question and look at it, because until you really look at the question and really start processing and thinking about it, that lie will have you. It will become the thing that holds your practice in place. So each lie is reflective of the mindset. So if this mindset becomes true for you, then it's really going to hold you in place. So let's go through each one. Lie number 1, I don't have the time. I just don't have the time. Steve, some of the strategies that you guys recommend, some of the things I hear your practice advisors talk about, some of the things I've read about in your partner's book, it's all great, but you don't understand. I don't have the time to implement this. Now, this is one of the more fascinating things that we struggle with in helping lawyers, because we are probably the largest seller of the best selling, let me rephrase that. We have the best-selling time management book in the world for attorneys. It's basically called Time Management for Attorneys. You would be amazed at how many times I'm at a conference and somebody will come up to me and go, hey, I read the book. I got your book on time management. And I'll say, great, did you read it? And typically they say, well, no, I haven't read it. I really honestly haven't had the time to read it. So it's not lost on me that we have lawyers feeling crushed for time, buying a book on time management, attending webinars and courses we teach on time management, but actually making no change in their practice because they don't have the time to make the change. If this is the first thing that's coming up for you and you say on a scale of 1 to 10, this is a total 10 for me, then we know that probably the biggest thing that's in your way is your belief in thinking around time management or focus management. So lie number one, I don't have the time. This is one of the critical reasons in our group programs, one of the critical reasons that when we work with one of our coaches, is that we first start to work on time management skills. Because in order to implement change, we have to open up room for you to breathe. We have to take some pressure off of you. And there's multiple strategies to do that. Everything from improving client selection to adjusting your pricing to how you manage your day to how you manage your week. There's lots and lots of strategies here. But if the first lie that you tell yourself, I don't have the time to make change, then you're going to always have the practice that you have today. Meaning that if you don't have time to make the change, you don't have the commitment, the ability to make the change about how you're spending your time, the practice you have today will be the practice you have for the remainder of your career, because this lie will hold you in place the most. Lie number two, I'm already worn out. I'm exhausted. I'm working 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. I don't have any gas left in the tank. So when I get home, I'm worn out. I come in, I work. I come in on the weekends, I work. I just work myself to death. And consequently, I have no energy to implement change. This is a critical one. It is absolutely crucial that if you're in this mindset and you're thinking about this, you are going to work yourself into burnout. You are going to work yourself into an early grave. You're the most valuable thing in the practice. You're the greatest asset. You're the golden goose. Everything that you do fuels the practice. So one of the most important strategies is actually to take great care of you. And I don't mean just great care physically. Everything from nutrition to making sure you exercise right to a spiritual practice, whether that's a major faith-based religion or whether that's meditation, I don't care. It's not important to me that what you practice is the fact that you practice and you do something that spiritually renews you, something that physically renews you, something where you're nutritionally taking care of yourself. Because the most important thing we have in the practice is your ability to think and judge problems. So if we work you, or you work you early into an early burnout or into an early grave, it does no one any good, least of all your clients, least of all your family, and least of all you. So one of the biggest lies that people will tell themselves why they can't grow is that I'm exhausted. Well, if you're exhausted because you've done it to yourself. And the most important thing that we can do is start trying to figure out, helping you, how we can figure out to protect you and put boundaries in place so we can get your energy reserves up, get that emotional capital built up, so we can have you make some changes so you can grow your practice, so you're not feeling like this and not experiencing this day to day. Lie number three, I am already overwhelmed. You've just reviewed lie one, lie two, and now you're on to lie three, and I'm already overwhelmed. I hear changes coming down the pike. I'm really worried about it. I'm kind of stressed about this call already. Got it. Look, we've been doing this for 25 years. What you might do as the first action is nothing more than one action. You don't have to implement 50 or 60 or 100 changes. You may just have to implement one time management change and one habit change in your first 30 days to get leverage. You don't have to implement 50 or 60 changes. Now, over a 3 to 4 to 5 year period, you may be able to implement 50 to 60 changes that may have a transformative impact on your life and your practice. But when you're overwhelmed, all you have to do is just pick one thing and implement that one thing well. And usually it's one of the recommendations I have when people are doing a webinar like this is to write that one thing down. Because when you write it down, it takes it from a point of anxiety to moving to your prefrontal cortex, where you can actually move it to the problem-solving components of your brain. So if you're overwhelmed, my suggestion is to write down this one thing. And that one thing may be simple enough. Just take a phone call from my team when they call you so you can tell them what the one lie is that has you the most. So you can help process and think through, is that really a true thing? Is that a true belief? That might be all you have to do today to start a progression of improvement in your life. Number 4, I don't have the confidence. I don't have the confidence. Now, this is interesting because a lot of lawyers have confidence in their legal skills. They just lack confidence in their business skills. Like, how do I get better clients? How do I hire better people? How do I price my services? So usually the confidence is broken down into multiple domains. So lie number 4 is I don't have the confidence. Look, you're an achiever. If you've been able to go through college and law school and pass the bar, and I don't care where you pass the bar, that is not an easy exam. If you've been able to pass the bar, you have the intellectual capability to grow a practice. You really do. And really what you focus most of your career up to at this point in time is your legal skills. And that's really where you have to look at, because at some point in time, it's not the legal skills that you need to focus on anymore. It's really, at the end of the day, more about your business skills. So at a certain point in time, especially when you own your own practice, we have to shift you away from having a belief that what will get you ahead is better legal skills. It's actually the improvement of your business skills that really, really matters. Skills like how to hire, train, manage, and lead people. Critical skill. If you're going to own your own business, the ability to find and train and lead people is an incredible skill. 2 might be your client development skill. It's very hard to increase your prices when you're trying to get the next client in the door to cover payroll. That's usually a result of not having good client development skills. How do you get better work in the door? That, once again, is a business skill. It has nothing to do with your ability to draft a motion or argue a case or, do a deposition. Those are straight up business skills. Just like you learn how to do the legal skills, you can learn how to do business skills. And that's really where I think a lot of lawyers kind of a blind spot. That's how come I call it a lie. I don't have the confidence. You got the skill, you just need to learn to develop the skill. And from developing the skill, you'll have the confidence. Lie number 5. This is a sneaky one. This is a vicious one. This is an evil one. I cannot express to you how evil this particular one is. This lie is lurking for a lot of lawyers. When I speak publicly, I probably get, I'm going to say, about 10% of a room on average to come to me and talk to me about this particular lie. They'll come up to me and say, Steve, I really appreciate all the ideas that you've shared with us on growing my practice. But the truth is, I'm not sure if this is where I want to be. I'm not sure if this is where I want to spend my life. I'm not sure if this is what I want to be doing. And their fear is if they actually put the effort forth to improve their business skills and grow their practice, they may not actually like it. They may actually grow it into a position that they don't like it. So they decide just to kind of hang out where they're at and suffer in this really bad practice purgatory until they decide whether to love or like their practice again, or love or like it for the first time. Here's what my recommendation is. The business skills that you have are translatable. So if you improve your time management skills, if you improve your client development skills, if you improve your ability to find, hire, and manage great people, and if you improve your skills on cash flow, profitability, pricing, all those skills are translatable to another practice area, or quite frankly, to a whole other business domain. So don't let the fear of this not being where you want to be stand in the way of developing the skills that may open doors for where you really want to be. So I would encourage you to love the practice that you have today, improve your business skills in the practice that you have today while you're looking for what's next for you, because those skills are totally, utterly translatable. And you're going to find that once you start to develop those skills, one of 2 things will happen. One will be what you really want to do will become obvious to you, and those doors will open, and you can move out of the practice into something that you really want to do. Or 2, you'll start to make changes to your practice that you really, really enjoy, and then you'll start to fall in love with your practice. So you're really the king or queen of your own domain. And you have the ability to design and shape the practice to really what you want it to be. But if this is a belief that you have, a lie that you're telling yourself, it's going to keep you in this really bad place, this really awful emotional purgatory. So don't let this lie own you. See it for what it is, which is just a lie that you've made up about your practice. Lie number 6. I'm focused on my building up my legal skills and not building up my business skills. Really what matters to this particular lie or this particular mindset is the better, it's a belief, and it's an academic belief. It's an academic belief that we all got taught in law school, that the smarter you are as a lawyer, the better you are as a lawyer, the more the clients will come. And it is not true. It really isn't true. It's just not true. It doesn't mean, by the way, that you can't be or you shouldn't be a great lawyer. But what it does mean is that clients really can't distinguish, quite frankly, whether you're a great lawyer or average lawyer. Here's the truth about it. If they knew the difference between a good lawyer or a great lawyer, they could really have a completely different perspective of how to choose and work with attorneys. What they're choosing their lawyers by is really not the lawyer's legal skills, but by the business experience the lawyer has created for them to experience. So how your phone is answered, how quickly you respond to email, how you treat them, how your team treats them, really creates a far greater impression on them of whether you're a, quote, good lawyer or a great lawyer than actually how you draft and do your legal services. It's the most amazing thing that lawyers will get all hung up like, well, I'm just going to become a greater lawyer and that will make the difference. Quite frankly, the truth is how your receptionist treats them, how you draft your billing, how your team responds to them, and that your customer service will probably be the overwhelming thing that they will be left with on what they think about your legal skills. There are some really, really smart lawyers that are brilliantly gifted, academically thoughtful, just really great practitioners that run a very poor practice. And consequently, their brilliance is never recognized because they think it's the only thing that matters, so that their academic brilliance at being a lawyer is the only thing that matters. Truthfully, it's really, quite frankly, the experience that they have. So let me give you by analogy here. I just recently had the pleasure of flying on a major airline. It never occurred to me whether the pilot was a great pilot, a good pilot, or an average pilot. What occurred to me was how I was treated when I got on the airplane, how I was treated on the airplane. Did the airplane land on time? Were there any hidden luggage fees? Were there any hidden snack fees? Were there anything hidden on there? How was I treated when I got off the plane? Was my luggage there when I got off the plane? Those were the things that I was experiencing as a customer of this airline. I'm going to assert that your client assumes that you're a good pilot. They're going to assume that you're going to land the plane where it lands and that you'll take great care of them as a pilot. What they're going to judge you on is all the business issues that you've created for them to experience. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't be a great pilot and land the plane. It just means that you should perhaps consider focusing on your business skills in addition to your legal skills. So your business skills of how clients are treated for customer service, your client development skills, how you train your team, those are the things that will have a tremendous impact on whether clients will refer you business. One of the things I look for in a practice when we're helping lawyers, and we work with about 500 firms currently, one of the things I always look for on the health of a practice is how many referrals does the attorney get from existing clients. So if the lawyer's getting, let's say, 50 to 60 referrals a year, I want to see at least half of those referrals coming from past or existing clients. My rule of thumb is 50%. That tells me that the customer service is at least healthy. So we have a firm that's getting maybe 5 to 10% of their business from referrals. That tells me the customer service probably isn't healthy. So one of the things that you want to look at is, how are you thinking about this? How are you thinking about your practice? How are you thinking about your legal skills versus your business skills? And it's a major lie, quite frankly. It's a status quo mindset lie that the only thing that matters is your legal skills. It's just like my pilot. The only thing that matters is whether he's a good pilot or not. If he got me there late, lost my luggage, charged me with some hidden fees, and the flight attendants treated me poorly and the gate agent treated me poorly, I'd probably never fly that airline again, no matter how skillful that pilot flew. So I'm just going to invite you to look at this from a couple different perspectives, and that's all. Lie number 7. This is a tricky one too. I don't like and don't want to develop the skills that are holding me back. And typically these are the skills that are the most crucial. I always joke that a lot of lawyers go to law school to avoid sales and marketing, and they also go to law school to avoid people. And ironically, the ones that are really the best at growing their practices have to develop great marketing skills and, quite frankly, some sales skills and good managing skills. The difference between a market dominant firm and a good, successful practitioner is usually not their marketing skills alone. It's actually going to be their managing skills, their ability to develop and manage people, because that's really where you leverage yourself. That's really where you're able to create a great business experience across the board for your clients and prospects and referral sources. So if you take a step back and you say, okay, what's the skill that I'm avoiding developing? You can go ahead and write it down. You can tell it when my team calls you and just say, this is the skill that I'm trying to avoid. This is the thing that I'm trying to avoid. It might be managing people. Most lawyers don't manage, they abdicate. They just throw stuff at folks and hope to God it sticks, and don't take any time teaching, training, helping people learn the role. They just kind of throw stuff at them. That's how come it takes so long for lawyers to train. We really don't think about it well. It might be that skill. It might be that thing. That might be the thing that we need to have you develop. So when my team calls, share that with them. Tell them, I think this is the lie that's holding me back. I don't want to, and I don't like having to develop this particular skill, whatever it might be. Lie number 8. This is a doozy too. Lie number 8. I need to think about it more. I need to think about this. You made some very good points, but I need to think about it. Look, lawyers are the fastest conceptual learners on the planet. We're in the upper 2% of the population intellectually. Now notice I said intellectually, not financially. We are sophisticated procrastinators. I need to think about it more is the greatest line for procrastination you will ever find. I need to think about it. I need to think about it. I need to think about it. And really what you're saying is, look, this scares me. I really don't want to make a decision here because I might be wrong. So the more I can think about it, the more I can procrastinate on making a decision here. And this is really a brutal, mean lie, because you don't learn anything from thinking about it. The learning's from doing. So if you really want to be better asking clients for referrals, you're never going to get business from clients by thinking about it. Asking them for business is different. That's learning how to do it versus I need to think about how to grow my practice. Thinking is the booby prize. It gets you nothing. Doing is where the learning occurs. So I'm going to encourage you that this is a brutal lie. It's the essence of procrastination. I need to think about it more. I just need to think about it more. If you catch yourself saying, I need to think about it more, the real question you want to ask yourself is, what am I afraid of here? What scares me here? Because if you're telling yourself you need to think about it more, there's something underlying this that's scaring you. And needing to think about it is a sophisticated form of procrastination that you're telling yourself so you can rationalize your behavior around it. The real question is what's under there that scares you. That becomes the big question. Lie number 9. How will I know it works? I want a guarantee. Yes, because life comes with guarantees, right? The only thing I can guarantee you is that the practice that you have today will be the practice that you have tomorrow. And the client that you don't like today will be the clients that you don't like tomorrow. And I can guarantee you, if you make no changes in your practice, that your income will actually not grow but decline over time because your costs will increase. That's the only guarantee I can give you. Because really, for you to grow your practice, most of the work needs to be between your ears and in your actions. And the only thing I can guarantee you is if you make no change, what you have today is what you'll have tomorrow. That's the only guarantee I can give you. Lie number 10. I don't have the support. My spouse, my partners, my staff, my friends won't help me. Now, this one is where you get to play the victim. You get to stand back and say, I am a victim here. You don't understand. I am a victim. This is somebody else's fault. If somebody else would just make some changes, I would be happier. It's tough. So if you're sitting here going, the truth is nobody supports me, my staff won't help me, you're playing the victim. You're playing the victim. You're not owning what's going on in your life. You're not owning what's going on in your practice. So I'd encourage you that if you're saying, look, I don't have the support, it's not their responsibility. It really isn't. Your happiness is not the responsibility. The financial outcomes of your practice is not their responsibility. It's your practice. It's your responsibility. It's your life. So this is just a lie you tell yourself when you don't want to be accountable for it. It's when you get to play the victim. You get to be a good victim here, and you can rationalize and say, well, it's not my fault. What I'm producing in my practice is not my fault. I'm just stuck here. I'm stuck. I'm a victim. It's an evil lie. It's a lie of victimhood. It's a lie of not being accountable. It's a lie of not being responsible for your own life. And I can only encourage you that if you hear this lie, is that your response to yourself should be, why am I making myself the victim? What am I not being responsible for here? What am I not being accountable for here? Why am I saying this? Why am I kind of going through this? And once again, if one of my team calls you and says, hey, Steve Riley asked me to call to check in, if this is the lie, tell them the truth. Tell them the truth about it. Because at the end of the day, all progress begins when you tell the truth about these things. And these are the 10 critical lies that will just continue to hold your practice in place. Now, I've reviewed the 10 core lies or the 10 critical lies that I hear over and over that just hold lawyers in place. And it is a brutal thing to hear these and see them over and over. What I'd like to do is spend about 5 to 10 minutes talking with you about how to implement change. And I'm going to introduce you to a formula that we use in our company called the Practice Growth Formula. And this is an internal formula, and we share it publicly on how to implement change in your practice. This formula is really the source code behind all of our group programs, behind a lot of the coaching that we do, because we know that if you want to implement change, we've got to have you think about, how do I do this so it's sustainable? It's one thing to have reactive change where something's landed on your lap and you have to change because of it. But it's a whole other thing to create out of your own vision, out of your own goals, out of your own thinking, a positive, proactable, and here's the key word, sustainable change. So that you work toward a goal, you build a platform, a foundation of capabilities that allow you to sustain good, positive change in your practice. So good. Here's the formula. I'm going to walk through each element of this quickly. If we were doing a workshop in one of our group programs, we might spend 90 minutes taking this apart, but I'm going to spend about 9 because I'm just going to introduce some key elements so you can think about these things and wrestle with them. So I'm going to walk you through each one of these. I'm going to walk through the change formula. I'm going to walk through the critical decision. I'm going to walk through the 4 building blocks of growth. And I'm going to walk through briefly the continuous growth approach. And then we'll move forward from there. So the critical decision, whenever you look at moving something forward in your life, one of the key elements that you need to confront is, what is the critical decision I have to make? What is the most important decision I have to make to sustain what I want or sustain the change that I'm implementing? And it might be a change where you're going, okay, great. I'm making a decision that I'm going to have a conversation with one of the Atticus team members call. Or it might be, you might say, well, I'm going to take a bigger step further. I'm going to actually reach out and talk to these people about what they can do to help me grow my practice. Or it might be that you go, well, I'm going to make the decision today that probably the most important thing I can do for the next 30 days is take better care of myself. And I'm going to change a health habit. Whatever it might be, that critical decision will release energy. And that energy is necessary to put wind in your sails to move forward. So tough decision making is critical actually to unlock energy and unlock excitement. And the excitement can come from fear, like anxiety, or it can come from just pure excitement because you're happy about what you're trying to progress forward. But the first thing to actually implement change in your practice is to make a tough decision about what you're going to try and do. 2 is really the 4 building blocks of growth. And I'm going to talk about these one by one. To actually grow your practice, you're going to need 4 business skills. And these are the 4 absolutely critical business skills to move your practice forward. And all of these business skills actually will heighten and put your legal skills up on a platform. But the truth is, they're kind of like a wobbly table. If you don't have 4 of these building block skills, if you don't have these 4 skills, it's going to be very hard to grow your practice. So I'm going to walk through each one briefly. 1 is time management. If you don't learn how to improve your time management skills and your focus management skills, it's going to be very difficult to grow your practice further than what it is. Usually the most, how do I say this? The most devastating strategy that most lawyers can make to try and grow their practice is to work more and work longer. And that's kind of an academic paradigm. That is a paradigm that you're taught in law school, that the only way to get ahead is to work more and work longer. And if you were an associate, especially in a billable hour shop, the firm that you worked for probably told you the best way to get ahead is to work more and work longer. Of course, they want you to work more and work longer because they can crank more billable hours out of you. But the truth is, that doesn't work that way. At some point in time, you only can work so many hours and you can only crank out so much production before you have to shift how you think about that. And I mean, not just how you price your services. I mean, everything from how you choose work to how you process work, to how you leverage your time, to how you even respond to simple emails. All those things have to change. And as your practice grows and you increase gross revenue and you increase caliber of clients, your time management skills will then evolve even further. 2, client development and marketing. This is probably the most fundamental skill that if you want to grow a sustainable practice, is how to get business in the door and do it on a consistent, regular basis. Now, you can advertise on the internet, you can advertise on TV, you can do search engine optimization. But for me, the best ROI is learning how to do referral-based marketing. It is, without hesitation, probably the best dollar for dollar return on investment that you can have as a lawyer. That's usually where your best cases come from. That's usually where your best price cases come from, is how to develop referral-based marketing. Staff hiring and training. Man, there's nothing that can wreck your day or make you float on a cloud than great team. A bad team member can just wreck your practice, and a great team member can elevate your practice to a whole new level. The ability to find and hire and train those people is critical. I was on a call today where I was talking to one of the lawyers. She and her team leader are running a very good practice, and they have a very successful practice, but they were afraid of firing someone because the question was who was going to do the work. It is pretty clear that this person wasn't going to make it long term. Their values were different. Their work ethic was questionable. Their skills were good, but their values were off. So even having the capability and the courage to confront that I've got someone who's decently skilled, but they don't fit value-wise, is a very big decision to make as an owner and manager of a firm. So in this case, they decide to, with my encouragement, to terminate the person. But now they have to go back in the marketplace, find somebody, train them, and train them up to be a really good team member on this firm. That's going to be a chronic and constant issue for your firm or for you personally if you don't develop the skills. You'll be afraid to fire someone. You'll say, well, I'm far better having the devil I know than the devil I don't, which is usually a way of telling yourself, I have no idea what I'm doing when it comes to finding, hiring, training, and motivating people. It's a hidden skill that most lawyers never bother to develop because they're blind to it. So when you look at this, that particular skill in itself is a fascinating skill to develop and grow, to have you grow your firm. Cash flow and profitability, critical, critical, critical. Inside of cash flow and profitability is also pricing. All four of these things work in conjunction, lift your practice up like hydraulic lifts, and they'll help you grow your practice. So as you're thinking about this, these are actually critical for business skills. There's other business skills that we can talk about, but if you're looking to implement, these are probably the four. If you're looking to grow, these are probably the four most important to implement. And then as we look at this, I just want to point out that your building block skills will change. What I've noticed over the years is that lawyers will first learn how to manage their self. And if they're a solo practitioner, which everybody on the call is, they'll probably manage themselves up to about a staff of 3 to 6. And most lawyers can't grow beyond a staff of 3 to 6 unless they learn how to manage their team. And then when they develop team management skills, they can probably manage up to 12 to 14. And then they cap out again. To really grow a firm beyond 12 and 14 employees, you actually have to create a management structure. And then you learn how to manage and lead your managers. And that really opens up some really interesting dynamics inside a firm and also opens up some massive capabilities in the firm. This is where you see someone who may be a solo practitioner with anywhere between 150 to 200 employees inside their practice. Now that sounds overwhelming, but they don't have any partners. They basically have their own practice. But what they've done is unlock the skill to lead and manage people. Now, I'm not saying that's a recommendation for anybody on the call. I'm just saying that it's definitely there's no limit to growth if you learn that your business skills must evolve over time to support your growth. So your business skills can actually evolve over time. That's how come this little arrow, for those of you that are watching this live on screen, is crucial. Your growth of revenue actually tracks the growth of your business skills. So as your business skills elevate, so does your revenue. Without these, you don't get both. So good. Great. What I'd like to do now is ask you, we've hit two of the major topics that I want you to hit today. I reviewed the 10 big lies. We looked at the lies, and I've asked you to kind of score yourself. Where are you at? Where are you at? So just take a moment right now and pick one of the lies, and pick of the 10 lies that we've gone through, pick the one or circle the one, or just write the one that you think has you the most. And why? Why does this one have you? So when my team calls you, you can tell them, this is the one that's got me, and this one's got me the most. From there, we opened up the conversation around the practice growth formula, and we hit a couple elements of this. We talked a little bit about the change formula. We talked a little bit about the 4 building blocks of growth. We talked a little bit about the continuous growth approach. If you're looking at growing your firm, you're really going to end up with 3 things to do this. You're going to look at, first and foremost, how do you create a compelling reason to change, which is the critical decision. What's the compelling reason? What's the big reason to get behind a change? 2, you're going to you're going to need accountability and follow-up system that allows you to support the change. And 3, you're going to usually have a coaching and strategy structure that allows you to support those changes. So as you grow over time, these things support the growth of your practice. So I think that's all I'm going to say for today's call. We could spend a lot more time taking apart the 4 building blocks of growth. We could take a lot more time about the continuous growth approach. But really what I'm going to do is ask you today, without trying to overwhelm you, what's next for you? What do you have to do that's important for you to move forward in this conversation? What lie do you have to wrestle with? What do you have to bring to bear in your own thinking? What decision would be the most important for you to make to help you move forward? And that's really why I'm having my team call you. We've developed some great relationships in the legal market, some great relationships with practitioners across the country. And it really begins with you starting to ask your question, what's the most important decision I have to make? Now, with that, before we open up for questions, I'm going to encourage you to have a recommendation. I'm going to encourage you to take a deeper look at your practice, take a deeper look at your leadership and management skills. And, this webinar kind of gave you a peek and had you look a little bit about your performance and your firm's performance. Hopefully for some of you, it was a wake-up call that a lie that you've made up that's not true is holding your practice in place. And that's really why we created this webinar. We're really, really hoping that a lot of lawyers will look at this because you guys are so critical. You're so crucial. You make such a difference in the world that these lies hold you back. And so it's a very, very critical conversation for me. And then the question becomes, what's the best action that you can take now with your unique strengths to make your practice more profitable and make you happier as a practitioner? Now, I'm going to give you a recommendation when you do get a call from one of my team. We're going to recommend that you take advantage of a practice growth diagnostic, which is kind of the entryway into our practice. Now, for me, I really think all of our clients should do one of these every year. It's probably the most important thing that you can do if you're a solo and you're trying to figure out how you're doing, what's working or not working about your practice, because it includes a couple elements. The first element is called the focus disc advantage. And the disc, those of you on the call might be familiar with the disc profile, the disc assessment. It was created by a psychologist called William Marston out of Harvard. About 45 million people have taken this particular type of test, and allows you to assess what your strengths are. Because one of the big mistakes that lawyers will try and do is they'll try and work on all of their skills. And sometimes they only have like 3 or 4 really remarkable skills. And their disc allows them to look at what those remarkable skills are and really build a practice around what they're gifted at. Because it doesn't make sense to try and improve your practice on what you're weak at, because over 5 or 10 years, you'll just be improved on weakness. It makes far greater sense to build a practice around what your strength is. And the DISC test or the DISC assessment allows you to figure out how to take your DISC and use it as an advantage for you and use it as an advantage for your practice. 2, we have you do a practice assessment. Let's look how you're doing on the 4 cornerstones, how you're doing on the 4 foundations of practice growth. The time management, cash flow, profitability, client development, staffing and hiring, how you're doing. And then we include the person that does the call with you. It takes about an hour to do this. We'll give you some recommendations. They will listen to what you're saying. They'll hear what you're talking about. And they will recommend to you the 3 most important actions to tell how to take out of your diagnostic. Now, what's your investment for this? It's a modest investment. It's $295. It includes a DISC assessment. It includes a written report of the DISC. It includes a complete practice growth diagnostic call with one of our advisors. And there's 2 ways to sign up for one. I'll give you a special way of signing up in a moment. 2 ways to sign up. 1, you can go directly to our website, atticusadvantage.com. Go to the Let's Get Started, and you can go through an online scheduling process, pay and schedule to get your DISC right there. The other way is if you want to do this, when one of my team members call and you take their call and you schedule a practice growth diagnostic with them today, I will include at no additional charge for you. We'll mail to you today our best-selling book on time management for attorneys. It's the one that I talked about before. My 2 partners, Mark Powers and Sean McNallis, wrote this book. It is a fabulous book to get you started on getting grip over your time. It's typically about a $90 investment. You can buy it off our website if you want for $90. Or if you get the practice growth diagnostic, we'll actually include the book, and our team will have that mailed out to you today. So that's how you can do this. You can either do it on the website, or when my team calls you, you can include, talk to them, answer the question, and we'll include the book as a thank you and also as a help to get you started on a path to a practice that makes you happier and a practice that makes you more money. The last thing I want you to do is to think about it. I don't want you to sit there for the next 90 days thinking about it. I don't think thinking about it buys you anything. Once again, I'm going to assert that any time in my life that I thought about something, it was because I was afraid to take action. So I would encourage you that if you're thinking about something, to really ask yourself, what are you afraid of? So I'm going to just do one thing right now. I'm going to thank you for taking the time to spend with us to think about these 10 lies and how they're impacting the practice.